Christian Horner is now officially clear to make his return to Formula One. His non-compete clause ended on May 8, 2026, and since that moment, the paddock has been buzzing with speculation about his next move. He has the wealth, he has the ambition, and he has made it very clear that he still has unfinished business in the sport. The real question isn't whether he comes back, it's how he comes back. And that's exactly where most of the outside noise gets it wrong. A lot of the media focus has been on him stepping into another team principal role. Names like Aston Martin and Ferrari keep getting thrown around, but that's not the direction Horner is really aiming for. He has openly indicated that any return would have to be for the right project, and more importantly, one where he is a partner rather than just an employee. He doesn't want a job, he wants ownership. And after his exit from Red Bull, that mindset makes perfect sense. He spent 2 decades building Red Bull into one of the most dominant operations in Formula One history, only to be removed in a single day because he had no equity stake, no shares, no control, no protection. In the end, he was an employee, and employees can be replaced. That experience reshaped how he sees power in the sport, and it's why his comeback won't resemble the usual team principal appointment people are expecting. If all he wanted was another leadership job, options would already be lining up. McLaren CEO Zak Brown himself has acknowledged that Horner's achievements speak for themselves and that it would be surprising if he didn't return in some form. But the moment ownership enters the equation, the number of realistic destinations shrinks dramatically. There are only 10 teams on the grid, and most doors are effectively shut. Gene Haas has consistently refused to sell any stake in his team. Ferrari has no ownership space available for outsiders, and Fred Vasseur is already locked in with a long-term deal. Williams remains under Dorilton Capital, who have shown no intention of selling. The new Cadillac entry has already made it clear that Horner is not part of their plans. A return to Red Bull or Racing Bulls is politically off the table after his departure. Meanwhile, Mercedes and McLaren already have established leadership structures under Toto Wolff and Zak Brown, both of whom also hold equity positions in their teams. Audi's project under Sauber is also fully corporate controlled, with no room for individual ownership. They did bring in Jonathan Wheatley Horner's former Red Bull sporting director as team principal, but even that experiment ended quickly in 2026, with Alan McNish stepping in as racing director. In any case, that kind of role wouldn't satisfy what Horner is looking for. All of this leaves one realistic Formula One pathway: Alpine. And Alpine is anything but straightforward. It sits at the center of a shifting ownership battle. The American investment group Otro Capital, which includes celebrity investors like Ryan Reynolds, acquired a 24% stake in 2023 for around $218 million. At the time, it was seen as a solid valuation, but Formula One team values have surged since then, and that same stake is now estimated to be worth over $600 million. Naturally, Otro Capital is looking to cash out and take the profit. Reports suggest Horner has aligned with MSP Sports Capital to pursue the purchase. MSP is not new to the paddock either. They previously invested in McLaren Racing before exiting in September 2025, giving them both experience and financial firepower in F1 deals. Securing that 24% stake would give Horner exactly what he's been chasing: real ownership influence inside a works team, not just a title on a door. But getting there is far from simple, and 3 major barriers stand in the way. The first is competition. Horner is not alone in this race. Mercedes, the corporate entity, not Toto Wolff personally, has also made a move for the same stake. Billionaire Steve Cohen, owner of the New York Mets, is also in the mix, with enormous financial strength behind him. The second obstacle is Renault's veto power. Renault still controls 76% of Alpine and, under the agreement with Otro Capital, retains the right to block any sale until September 2026. Early signals suggest Renault may prefer a deal with Mercedes, especially given Alpine's upcoming switch to Mercedes power units from 2026 onward. Strategically, that alignment makes sense. The third issue is regulatory uncertainty. The FIA is actively reviewing whether multi-team ownership should even be allowed. If Mercedes were forced to withdraw due to a conflict of interest owning stakes across multiple teams, it would dramatically reshape the entire bidding war and significantly improve Horner's position. Still, there is another possibility that many are overlooking entirely. Liberty Media, the company that owns Formula One, has recently acquired MotoGP. The current MotoGP CEO, Carmelo Ezpeleta, is expected to step down soon as Liberty begins reshaping the championship. Multiple reports indicate that Horner is on the shortlist to become MotoGP's next CEO. He was recently seen at the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez as a guest of both Liberty Media and MotoGP, though he publicly downplayed the speculation, saying only that he was attending as a guest and respects motorcycle racing. Former F1 Supremo Bernie Ecclestone has reportedly even advised Horner privately that MotoGP could be a better move than returning to Formula One, suggesting it offers more freedom and control. That role wouldn't place him in charge of a team. It would place him in charge of an entire global championship. Liberty Media's goal is to elevate MotoGP in the same way they transformed Formula One, and that requires someone who understands how to build a global motorsport brand. Horner's media profile, especially boosted by Time's Drive to Survive asterisk, makes him a natural fit for that kind of expansion-driven leadership role. It would also represent a significant leap in authority and influence compared to running a single team. There is, however, another layer to this story: reputation. Despite his success, Horner's public image took a hit in 2024 following allegations of inappropriate conduct. Although an independent investigation commissioned by Red Bull cleared him, the episode played out very publicly and left a mark in corporate circles. Large organizations like Renault, Audi, and others tend to be extremely cautious about reputational risk, which may be another reason Horner is leaning toward ownership rather than a traditional hire-and-fire leadership role. If he does succeed in taking control of Alpine, his motivation would be clear: beat Red Bull. More than just competition, it would be a personal statement, an attempt to prove he was the central force behind their dominance all along. That would reshape the entire competitive balance of the paddock. Adding to the intrigue, FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem has publicly expressed support for Horner's return, saying in Miami that the sport misses him and that they remain in contact. He even remarked that when Horner returns, it will be like he went for a vacation. That kind of backing from the FIA's top figure is not insignificant in a deal involving ownership and governance. So the reality is simple. Horner has the ambition and the resources, but his path back is extremely narrow. Over the coming months, everything hinges on two key developments. First, the FIA's ruling on multi-team ownership. If Mercedes is blocked, Horner's chances improve dramatically. Second, September 2026, when Renault's veto rights expire and the Alpine stake becomes fully open to competitive bidding. If both obstacles clear in his favor, he will still need to outbid deep-pocketed rivals like Steve Cohen to secure control. And if the Alpine deal falls apart entirely, the alternative becomes much more likely: a move away from Formula One and into MotoGP as CEO under Liberty Media, where he would finally have full-scale control without paddock politics. Either way, Horner is not stepping back into the sport casually. If he returns to Formula One, it will be on his terms as an owner, not an employee. If not, he may simply choose a different global stage altogether. After 10 months on the sidelines, forced away from the paddock by his non-compete clause, one thing is now certain. The only question left is what Christian Horner chooses to build next.